Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Recently, the museum acquired 4 30-pounder Parrott rifles, specifically the naval version of the Parrott rifle. We've done a previous video on Parrott rifles. Check the link in the description for more information about Parrott rifles in general. In this video, we're going to talk about what each of these 4 guns did during their service lives, because like with modern artillery, Civil War era guns had serial numbers engraved, and so we know what ships these guns were assigned to, when they were made, who inspected them, all sorts of fun information like that. The oldest of our guns is this one right here. Each of the guns is stamped on this breech band with a name, or in this case just some initials, barrel number, and then their number. This one is 98. It's the oldest of the 4 we have. And then the weight of the barrel. There were imprecisions in metallurgy and casting these guns, so each of our barrels is a slightly different weight, but they're all around 3,500 pounds. This particular gun, being the oldest of them, also has the longest service life. It was cast in 1862, and it first served aboard a brand new ship taken into the Navy. It was a merchant ship that the Navy took on as part of their wartime buildup, called Keystone State, named after the state of Pennsylvania. So this gun would have served on that ship while she was part of the blockading squadron, both the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic around the Caribbean. She was fairly successful as a blockading ship in that she was able to run down and capture a number of Confederate blockade runners. And she wasn't particularly heavily armed. These are far from the largest guns of the day. But combining a steam-powered warship with rifled guns that can shoot 3, 4, 5 miles gives you a powerful combination when chasing blockade runners. Blockade runners are often unarmed, and if they can't outrun you and they're within range of your guns, they often have to surrender. So Keystone State was very successful with that. Right around the end of the war in 1865, Keystone State needed some major work, and so the Navy chose to decommission her. And they took this gun, which was still in the inventory, and they armed another ship with it. They armed the war-built gunboat Huron with this gun. Huron had originally been armed with smoothbores, like many of the Civil War era ships. However, as the war progressed, she had heavier and rifled guns added to make her better for shore bombardment. As the blockade of the Confederacy became more effective and blockade running became less of a common thing, and the North began to take Confederate forts in rivers and along coastal areas, the ship started to be rearmed for that. Rifled guns were really effective at knocking out fortifications. The rifles were accurate enough that you could target the same area of the wall shot after shot after shot, and so you could eventually bring it down. Huron participated in the bombardment of Fort Fisher, which is portrayed in the movie Glory. It wasn't until after the battle that, for whatever reason, her existing 30-pounder rifle was replaced with this one taken from Keystone State. That probably indicates that the original rifle was worn out or damaged during the battle. These were very good guns, but the North bombarded that southern fort for quite a while, and there's all sorts of things that could have gone wrong that would have necessitated swapping out a barrel. For many of the same reasons that Iowa-class battleships had their barrels swapped out over the years. Our next 2 guns were manufactured and proofed in 1864, so a little bit later in the war. This one is barrel 245. Pardon the work in progress. We've had some volunteers start chipping the paint off preparatory to preserving these guns. So you're getting these at their worst. When you come back and visit in a couple of weeks, they'll be all cleaned up and ready to go. This gun was inspected by Artillery Inspector Robert B. Hitchcock, Like I said, 1864 manufacture, and it would have armed the gunboat Pink. Pink was a tugboat in civilian life that was taken over by the Navy during the war. Like the other ships on our list, she was initially armed with smoothbores, but Parrott rifles were able to be mass produced. So as the Navy was able to manufacture them and get them out, they began to replace the older style smoothbore guns on ships like Pink. The Navy 30-pound Parrott rifle is even shorter and lighter than its Army counterpart, the Army 30-pound Parrott rifle, and so it was really effective at dropping in place on smaller vessels like Pink, gunboats that didn't have many guns, or even larger ships that didn't have much room with their broadside batteries to add new pivoting Parrott rifles like these. Pink was also part of the North Atlantic blockading squadron and part of the Western Gulf Squadron under Admiral Farragut. Farragut was the first admiral in the U.S. Navy. While operating with Farragut in the Caribbean off the southern ports, Pink ran aground. This barrel was removed from her, and she was written off, no longer served in the Navy. And I imagine that following its removal from Pink, this gun was placed in a warehouse, much like the older Barrel 98, which, when Huron was decommissioned in the later 1800s, probably went into a warehouse in the 1870s. Next, we have Barrel 252. Like 245, this is an 1864 manufacture. This one was installed on USS Potomac. If you go and look for USS Potomac, you'll see that there isn't one in commission in 1864, 1865. So what ship did this arm? Well, the older frigate Potomac, which was built off of similar designs to USS Constitution. She was a post-war of 1812 44-gun frigate, was still around, although not as a commissioned vessel during the Civil War. And she was used as training ships, barrack ships, like many of the old sailing vessels that couldn't keep up with new steam technology. And she was part of the Western Gulf blockading squadron along with Farragut. And so it's likely that being an all-sail ship, they chose to add Parrott rifles to her in pivoting mounts on the main deck, so that if a southern steam-powered ship was able to somehow catch Potomac in a one-on-one engagement, Potomac was once one of the most powerful ships in the U.S. Navy. So it would be a huge publicity coup if the South was able to sink a ship like that. And even though Potomac had a powerful broadside gun battery, she had virtually no firepower on her bow or stern. So a steam-powered vessel catching a ship like that without any good wind could easily maneuver into a favorable position, and even a smaller Confederate ship only armed with one or two guns could slowly shoot Potomac to pieces. So it was very common for those all-sail ships to be rearmed with Parrott rifles like this. Oftentimes they even took heavy broadside guns off to replace them with lighter rifled guns like these, because they were so much more effective than the broadside guns at that point in history. Potomac continued to be used as a block ship, but with the end of the war and the pacification of the Gulf Coast states, she likely didn't need an armament anymore, and so this one went into a warehouse too. That's the common theme here. By the 1870s, all of these guns had been removed from service and were in warehouses. Iron muzzle-loading rifles were being replaced by newer, more modern steel breech-loading guns. And so the Parrott rifle's service life is basically just the 1860s. By the 1870s, there are new guns, and these are all in warehouses, which means by roughly 1873, when Camden, New Jersey is creating a memorial, these guns were all available to be placed in that memorial, which is where we got them from. Our last gun, barrel number 400, was not cast until 1865, and it has no service life associated with it. That probably means it was made at the end of the war, proofed, but then never assigned to a ship. This one is also in the best material condition, although you can't really tell it from looking at it with all the paint chipped off. It looks like the rustiest of them. It's in the best condition and likely was never used after proofing. You'll also notice, being a newer gun, it has a different style cascabel at the breech. So, how the heck do we know all of this information about these guns? Like, sure, they've got a serial number on them, but Civil War stuff, is it digitized? How do we find this information? If you've got Civil War artillery laying around and you want to know how to find out where it's from, what it might have been used for, you want to buy the book, The Big Guns, Civil War, Siege, Seacoast, and Naval Civil War Canon. Yes, Civil War is in the title twice, I didn't mispronounce that. If you look that up online, it's got a ton of great information about the individual types of guns used by both the North and the South throughout the Civil War. And in the back has a series of appendixes with known extant examples of these guns and all the information we have. So that was a great place to start looking and figure out, all right, some of these, I think it says 298, but I'm not 100% sure if that's right. Is that a known gun that exists in Camden? Oh yeah, the book says that it is. Great. And it even says that it believes that it was on this ship or that ship. Well, you want more concrete information? Well, then you gotta look up Jim Bender. Jim Bender is the steward of the National Registry of Known Civil War Artillery. I shot him an email, and the next day he got back to me confirming that yes, those are the barrel numbers. They're known to be here, and he and his predecessors, the stewards of this registry, had gone through different archives related to these artillery pieces and gotten different information. So we know what months these guns show up on individual ships. So that's how I'm able to say, oh yeah, this one wasn't used in the bombardment of Fort Fisher. It was still on Keystone State. It had to have been added prior to that, which likely means that the gun that she did have had needed to be replaced. So like I said, our volunteers are in the process of restoring these guns. First thing we're going to do is chip off all of the old paint that's on here and get up the rust at the same time, and then we can put on a new system of coatings. Treating an iron gun like this is no different from treating a steel warship. So you chip off the old paint, you get up the rust, you put on some new coatings. These guns are going to continue to be displayed here at the battleship. They will be part of our exterior campus display items, so you don't have to buy a ticket, come on the ship to see them. We're going to keep at least one of them down here with our 16-inch gun barrel, so you can see the beginning and the end of banded naval rifle guns. And we're going to create interpretive panels to talk about how guns went from this up to what our ship is armed with. Has anyone out there fired any Civil War artillery before? I've fired a 20-pound Parrott rifle. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of companies and private individuals. In particular, the support for our YouTube channel from private individuals like yourselves has allowed us to go from making one video a week to making multiple videos a week. So we appreciate your continued support. If you're interested in helping us continue doing what we do, there's a link in the description below. Also remember to like, share, and subscribe so that you're notified when we're putting out new stuff. Thanks for watching.